urban learning. There are two words which you can or should remember. It's capacity building and it's peer-to-peer. And it's often in EU projects, you have quite a variety of actors mixed in a project. Here, we were quite among ourselves, meaning it was really targeted for city administrations to be from city administrations for city administrations. And not a lot more. We had also agencies, energy agencies in some cases included, but it was definitely, and you will see why later on, mainly for the administrations. So the reason why it didn't work, by the way, before was because the pictures were so big, the size of the pictures. That makes this so slow. That's the only thing. So just also for the next ones to come. Who are we urban learners then? It was said at the beginning, 8 cities, mainly capitals, and different departments. Already that was an interesting discussion to start with. We do have urban planning departments from some, Stockholm, particularly in Amsterdam. We have the energy department, planning department from Vienna, infrastructure department from Warsaw, energy and climate office from Zagreb. And so whom did I, for Berlin, we have, it's the Senate, help me, Heike, for?
Oh.
Ha.
I'm fascinated from the photo.
Okay, okay. Stadtentwicklung, city development. And housing.
Yeah.
And from, Paris, we had before Sébastien, who presented before also for Clichy-Batignolles. So, 11 partners in total, and you see us here actually in Vienna's Nordwestbahnhof, one of the other development sites, trying to pull together I lost the word in English, die Weichen stellen at the train, for the trains. Yeah, Our starting point was really, you have seen 3 examples of massive development areas, but actually in all the cities there's much more going on because the development growth in the cities is fast. So this population growth puts a lot of pressure on cities to build much faster than actually what you have seen for Aspern or for Clichy-Batignolles, because where you have 15 to 20 almost years of development. And for Vienna, for example, we are looking now to build new capacity for a minimum 20 to 30,000 people per year. So that's what the whole Aspern is doing in 20 years. And the situation is similar in many cities, so we have a pressure, we have to do something. We have to also look there what we can do better in our procedures. We have this carbonization path we need to follow, which is particularly tough for the cities. We have, on the other hand, we have also technological developments which were mentioned before, who actually allow more now, with the buildings consuming almost nothing anymore in terms of energy. We can look for different systems to supply the buildings also. So we have possibilities which we didn't have before, which also makes it, again, worthwhile to look at energy planning. And on the other hand, what we realized, and this is why it's also a capacity building project, with the liberalization of the electricity and gas markets, the companies had to be privatized. And the situation in Vienna and in other cities as well, not in all, was that the utility was part of the city. And the energy planning was done by the utility people within the city. And then the whole thing moved out with the liberalization, and the whole knowledge on energy planning moved out of the city into the company and was never taken up again in the cities. So we actually, therefore, needed to come back and really say there is a role to play on the administration side, and we don't have all the knowledge yet there to do so. So in this project, we tried to raise capacity, but not only energy planning, but actually how energy planning has to be better done together within the urban planning, and to have situations where we at the end can have low carbon or even carbon neutral quarters, because everything what we are building right now will definitely be there in 2050. So there is, if we are now building quarters which are not fulfilling this already, we have to reinvest a lot later on. How did we approach this? So one of the key things, and we have members from local working groups, not only from Vienna here, but also from other cities, we said, in order to do this capacity building, there's no point in doing this within one energy department. We need the planning department, we need the housing department, we need those responsible for green space, for environment, with outside people. And this we approached with what we called in a project terminology slang, a local working group, to exchange and to learn interdisciplinary within city administration, but also with outside people. And in each of the cities, a local working group was created, and according to the different circumstances, they looked also different. In Zagreb, for example, the mayor appointed the members of the local working group. In other cities, it was done differently. But always we tried to give this a visibility, and also and have not the learning only on one side, but really make it together. The second, you will see soon that we did a lot of analysis on the processes of planning, energy planning, but also urban planning. We had a lot of detail. It was sometimes really hard to find our way from the details, to lift the fog and from the details, and to come back to higher levels of aggregation. And we looked at how are our processes, what instruments and what tools are the cities using, is there something missing, are there organizations or actors missing in this whole thing, and what kind of options do we have. All this was taking us to the next steps to come up with proposals how to adjust in the cities the standard planning processes, because what we have seen before, these examples, they were also our starting point. We know that in all the cities there are good examples, but they first of all, they have sometimes special organizations. Second, they get a lot of attention, extra funding, and it's not the standard what we can have for all the quarters. So we have to look at our standard procedures. And therefore, it was to look at proposals for how to improve our procedures, and to do this in an exchange between not only one city, but then with other European cities and other national cities. And here you see, for example, our local working group from Vienna, when we started to discuss how does our process in Vienna look like. And also we had then workshops to see what kind of options do we have to steer on the energy subject within the instruments that the city of Vienna, in this case, has at hand. And in order to pursue some of them later for more detail. And how we did the approach of analyzing our procedures, Herbert will explain. I would like also to say outside are several posters from cities as well as from the different works in the project, where you can see this detail which we are not able to capture in a very brief presentation. Yep.
Yeah, what we did was that we said, okay, we're talking about governance processes, but we are often, if we talk about development areas, we talk about urban planning processes, and we are set our focus on that, and we try to find an understanding of these processes and also to map them, to understand the elements of each step, So from the beginning to create a vision for a certain area up to the final implementation to the construction. And the challenge was to map all this process in each city. As you can see here on this picture, each city has done this, and you need a lot of talks within the city with other departments which are involved in these processes, and then also to come to a common understanding of that. But we are not only focused on this process, we focus on also about this whole framework around these processes. For instance, the legal framework or about organization issues and so on. And finally, to find also the similarities and differences. You see on the left side, the simplified urban planning processes. It shows the main phases which are very similar in more or less in each city. We know that in every case, for every area, there are differences, but in most of the cases, these are the phases. Yeah, and in this analysis, we recognized also that is a crucial difference of potentials if the city is landowner or not, because we have the situation that Paris, for instance, and Amsterdam has a lot of land, owns a lot of land, and in other cities like Warsaw and Zagreb, it's different. They own less land. The other cities between them. And yeah, you have other kind of instruments available if you own the land. And this was the starting point for the next step, the step to create approaches toward integrative energy planning. We'll see it on the next slide, yeah. So each city developed ideas how to integrate the energy issues in the whole process. So it could be about the adaptation of existing elements and instruments. It could be also new instruments which we need, and also different criteria. So we discuss which criteria we want to, we have to need to know at which point in the process. And furthermore, we are also discussing what we need as framework to do this. If we want to put in energy criteria in different instruments or make a kind of energy zoning, what we need, for instance, from legal framework, or what we need also as basis data to do this. Yeah, and out of this, we are also thinking about what are now the next steps of implementation. So all of us developed an idea how to implement it. We call it implementation plans. So it's our recommendations. Some of them already used in first pilots. Some issues are under discussion. And this work is also a basis for other cities and other experts to, it's provided as information that you can use it also as replication in other city administrations.
Mm-hmm. I can assure you that there is a lot of detail behind this work, and I would like to mention really also how difficult it is. Already in our local working group in the German language, we needed our time to find out that we are talking about the same things in the same language, and that is difficult, coming from different sides of the process and from different perspectives. And we in this project, with the different languages and the different planning cultures, I think. Yesterday we mentioned now we are as far that we are quite sure that we understand each other. So it would be good now to continue with the project. It is difficult, and it's but nevertheless a very worthwhile experience. No? Okay. Because we looked at all the processes, we had also a work package which was led by the Paris Climate Agency, where we really looked more into the instruments and tools and did a mapping on which level are they, which is for what are they used, for which target group, Are they more used for the planning phase? Are they used for monitoring? And so we have, if you want, a full mapping from all the cities, and we distilled out of that then best practices, which we also shared. So this is the thing we did, and quite some ideas for how to do came out of how the other cities in the consortium were doing. Similarly, we had also exchanges on what could be actually the carbon neutral solutions, and this we also grouped in around examples from the cities and around site visits. So each of the cities did a number of site visits to find out how others are doing. And the Amsterdam people, for example, they tomorrow will have an in-depth look at, again, at district heating here together with Vienna. We, the Vienna people with different administrative units, go to Paris actually on Thursdays to discuss in detail who is in charge of what in Clichy-Batignolles, what did it cost, who took the risk, and all these kind of things. So these study tours were not just visiting and walking through a quarter, but it was the occasion to find out and to dig deeper and to get it on first hand from the people, like now I see from Berlin, how it was done. And this just gives you a few impressions that, because we did exchanges between the cities in our consortium meetings, of course, trying to see what it was done, and as I mentioned here, also in site visits, not only to the cities in the consortium, but also to others outside. So it was difficult to summarize or to conclude something from the project and to have this still on a meaningful level, because some of the things, we were not doing a research project where we have hilarious new findings, but we have it, and this is not rocket science, so it's most of it, you can say, is more on the common sense side. But still, we started analyzing the processes, and we very quickly realized how important it is to look at the framework conditions of the project, of the planning processes, who are without having a legal framework in place that supports the urban planning and the integration of energy in urban planning. It's almost pointless to change processes. So this goes from the strategic work, which in many cities is in place, but it's also, you need a real hook that urban planning can do a spatial differentiation for energy. And this hook, we try, for example, currently in Vienna to get this into the legal base. In other cities, partly this is already, and it's important to look at the beginnings of this, and therefore our proposals also, which you will see from the cities soon, they are all more on the early phase of the process, because we realized that we have deficiencies in the beginning of the process. And so they are not so much towards the end. Obviously, and this is not surprise to anybody, there is no single way of doing. But what is needed is a well-tailored and tuned system in a combination of instruments and tools, and they do differ quite a lot between the cities. So there to say this is the only way, is just impossible. But again, I'll have a look outside, and the cities can also and will explain to you on the tables later also how they did it and what their ways forward are. We have a data session this afternoon also because we realized that we need in order to say we need to have energy in the urban planning process, we have to have an argument why, a legal argument and substance, why there is difference on a spatial in the space between for energy, which could be renewable energy, because especially geothermal energy you don't have everywhere. So there is reason in the type of renewable partly. And the main reason is, and this is for cities very important, is the grid. As soon as you have the question of a grid, shall I make a grid, or shall I enlarge a grid, or shall I do it without? There you are in a long-term planning question, and there you are often in public space, and there you need to go much very early into a planning process. And actually, these are the questions which we looked at in this project. Mainly the solutions where you need a grid. And the data session in the afternoon will show ways of how you can differentiate on a special level for in terms of energy. How is the building demand developing, the energy demand? What kind of building stock would you need, and so on. I said it's the early planning phase. Just the example from Adlershof, take it from this morning when Beate Mecke said they only looked at energy issues in terms of planning in 2012, you said. And I remember from our visit when we were there, when we asked you, Mr. Lauterbach, what lesson, and one of the lessons was to start much earlier with this energy issue planning, because then you have more flexibility still and more options available. We realized between the levels of the city and the quarter, we have a lack of actor on the quarter level, and this is why we lose also qualities throughout the planning process. We have the actors. This is one thing where we need to. We don't really have a lot of solution. Berlin will present you one where an actor on the quarter level, a proposal which is implemented for Berlin, shows a way. But definitely one of the reasons why we lose quality is because we hand over from step to another department, and we don't have, in the most cases, somebody who follows it through until the very end. And one way is also that goes together with that is a lack of monitoring. Our role model there is Stockholm always. Stockholm, the buildings have to show the consumed energy data, and it's asked several years after to make sure that what they wanted is achieved. And imagine this report is even published. So there we have a lot to do to go forward. But starting first now with the raising awareness that we really need to incorporate these qualities in our planning process, and there is still a lot of work to do there. Having a good understanding is key. This is why it took us a bit longer. And this is to go to the end. Urban learning, the process of involving different departments proved they're really helpful. We had situations where this happened for the first time, and it changes the understanding if you have several departments around the table, because they see different things, they have different ways to look at, and this all together is the learning we need to do. So I would like now to ask the cities to come to the stage, and we proceed in alphabetical order with city implementation. They show you. Can all the cities please come to the stage? So, Amsterdam Zaanstad starts. Go.
About our approach, we invited 4 existing projects into the local working group, our team, and within these projects we investigate what the possibilities are for energy, and what we have to change in our procedures and our instruments. And about our results, we have added energy now included in our urban planning process. That was not the case before. We have also more strictly energy rules, more strictly than on the national levels, more strictly requirements, targets. We're using also urban contracts and put on energy requirements and targets in it. And we have also a pilot that was Hembrugterrein. It's a brownfield. And in that case, we succeeded to put targets in. We succeeded to, in the urban contract, we succeeded to also do it in the tendering process. And it's now becoming an area with energy neutral. It is also, the dwellings are without natural gas. And there's also 2 megawatt of solar panels. That's because we have also monuments in that area, and that was not possible to make them energy neutral. So we have make a combination in it.
Mm-hmm. That was Maria Sandman from Zaanstad. Now handing over to Marijke Gottschalk from Amsterdam.
Yeah, I'm telling you about 2 points. Since the end of last year, Amsterdam has a new strategy about a city without natural gas. This afternoon, I will tell you a little bit more about that strategy. And we also signed a city deal with all kinds of partners that we work together to this goal in 2050 about a city without natural gas. And Zaanstad signed a sort of similar deal, and it's called the Green Deal. We have a big project, Harbour City. It's about 40 till 70,000 new homes in 2040. And for Amsterdam, it's the first project we're using a new type of zoning plan. And we can put extra rules, extra ambition in the zoning plan. So we are building now the sustainable buildings for the future.
Okay. Thank you. I'm handing over to David Jong from the Berlin Energy Agency for Berlin.
Yes, hi. So in Berlin, during the project, we focused on the building stock and also on ways to promote energetic neighborhood approaches. So moving away from the building level only, but rather to look at the whole quarter. And as part of this process, we identified that it's quite difficult for the local authorities to initiate quarter-based strategies. So it starts from the idea where to actually to put the barriers for a quarter. Where does it make sense, and what data do I need, and what are the main factors that neighborhood approaches are being implemented. So we came up with the idea to establish a service point for energetic development. So an additional entity which supports the local authorities on the quarter level to really initiate neighborhood approaches. And we piloted this approach during the project in one of the Berlin quarters, and now they are in the phase in that district, in that quarter, to really start an energetic concept, and also the actors who were involved in that, mainly the building owners, building companies, they said it's a good idea to integrate energy into our ongoing activities, and they are committed to really implement actions. So for that, learning was very helpful for us to display the need for such a quarter actor.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Handing over to Paris. Pierre Weber for Paris from the Climate Agency.
Yes, thank you. The project has shown that gave us some time to discuss and exchange between city department, and it was really important, and we found out that we need to create such a committee. So we decided now in the Paris Action Plan that we will create an energy committee that follows every project. And we also found out when we analyzed the instrument and tool that we were some tools that are not very efficient, or we need to improve them. And also, you have seen before on the Clichy-Batignolles project, we also have some trouble of monitoring. So now we have a European project called Cordes to follow and measure all the consumption, because it's a high requirement, but then we don't know yet if it's good figures or not. And sharing between the city were very useful to see other tools like in Amsterdam or monitoring in Stockholm. So now we think, and we had time actually to look of all we've done and to improve all of this.
Okay, thank you. Moving to Stockholm. Lucas?
Oh, okay, you
Yeah,
skipped the city.
No, I go back to the city.
Yeah. Urban Learning Project has been very, very useful for us in Stockholm, and it has given us the opportunity to look deeper into the governance process in the city, within the city, and with external actors. And the 3 work packages has also been very nice, because they have given us the possibility to look at the task from different standpoints. And in Stockholm, we choose to look more at open district heating with smart grids and energy-efficient buildings. Some increased solar production, and energy storage. We think that these technologies are the most important for us to become a resilient city in the future. And in the next package, there was the instrument and tools that we would need to steer those techniques into the governance process. And we have chosen a few of them that will help us to be a better coordinator in the energy process. And one of those is the handrail tool, which is a process tool that we use already in the city. But we are now trying to develop a handrail which is more into energy, which means that we have all the actors from the energy field, and we will define who and when and by whom energy has to be defined in the process. And then we have this mess of different departments that we have to connect. So we need a very, very nice and clear goal for energy, and therefore we need a new or a separate energy strategy, which is separate from the climate strategy, because climate and energy, they go together, but they're not the same. And that would help us to have a more goal-oriented process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We move to Vienna.
Yeah, for Vienna was urban learning also very helpful to come to this common picture of the planning process. And I think through the work with all the involved planning departments, we also reached a very good common view on the process and better understanding of each other, which are the needs of the urban planners and of the energy planners. Out of this local working group, we now established a new working group with members from the city and utility operators, and with high-level representatives, where we are coordinating the energy development and the urban planning development in the major development sites in Vienna. And as well, the whole urban planning project, which was more or less designed in this way, was a very big help for our thematic concept we are now working on, which should be the idea how in Vienna the integration of energy planning in the urban process should be in the next decades.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We are moving to Warsaw. Leszek. And this was, by the way, Stefan Geier from MA20.
Yes, so it is very interesting to work with this project, because we have to identify deeper and to see sharper our challenges in our city, especially in the spatial planning model, especially in the model of the energy planning and integration of that two processes. And so it was one of the reasons that I had this question about the number of parking spaces for the households, because this is also the process in Warsaw when we are planning our new model of the the directions and the models for the spatial design for the city of Warsaw. It will be finished probably in 2020. So this is long process. Every process in this area is long. So after our work in this project, our frustration is maybe even deeper because we see good examples from our partners. And we see, for instance, how long it's necessary to implement such a project like the Aspern, like the Clichy-Batignolles, like the Berlin project. So this is in the period when people in Paris started work with the project Clichy-Batignolles from the year 2002, in Warsaw we constructed about 200,000 new flats. So imagine how much energy we lost in this process, being not very well coordinated in this. So the time is running very fast, but the processes are pretty long and complicated. So this is the lesson we have from the project, but also we know how to work faster and how to implement better our strategies.
And last but not least, Nives. Leszek, by the way, head of the infrastructure department from the city of Warsaw, and now Nives from the physical planning department, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hello
From
to
Zagreb.
everyone. Well, at least after Warsaw, I feel a little bit better, you know. So why is that? So first, I have to say that for Zagreb and for our team, this project is real urban learning. So I think we get from this project very much. And as someone said before, I think that for us it is just starting, you know, in a way of this project. So we need, of course, we are aware that we need a long-term energy or overall strategy, because right now we do not have one. You know, so we have to think about 2050. We have, however, we have some strategies in preparation, but to bypass them and to bridge them, we need probably some energy planning guidelines. This is because energy transition and decarbonization is a huge change of planning paradigm. At least for us, I think, as we said, it is for everyone. So we detected that we need to establish energy planning and monitoring body or department to be, as we say in this project, energy keeper, that this is very important. So to have a body to take care of energy issue and to connect everyone that has something to do with energy. And this is also a thing that we learn from this project is about our own administration and our own processes and departments. So we need, of course, the biggest issue also is like legislation, because we depend on national legislation framework. So there is also a lot of harmonization to do to success. And for right now, the possibility of have some binding goals in urban plans, we need to do some urban and energy planning study to be sure that these goals can be reached. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you, by the way, and to the whole team of people who are sitting there. I'm sorry. I didn't count the opportunities, but along the way of the project, we really tried to not first do the project work and then do the implementation, but to use all these opportunities, the so-called windows of opportunities, when that came up. So when Amsterdam had to rework its strategy, or other cities had to rework some parts of the strategies, we were always trying to look that we get the relevant pieces of from the different levels into these strategic documents. When other plans were revised, we were doing the same. And partly in Vienna, there are currently also negotiations to improve the legal base for planning, and also there we fed in all these different proposals. So it's not something that is waiting until the results are there, but it's work in progress.